Hi everyone, this is Sarah Jane from Coco Crochet, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make the Moroccan lattice bottle holder. This is a free pattern that you can find on my blog and is also available as an ad-free PDF. In the PDF you'll find two sizes. I'm going to be making the smaller size today, but it will also include the larger size as well. And I'll give instruction on the larger size throughout this video tutorial as well. I'm going to be using Hirschner's Cottage Cotton, which is a 60% cotton and 40% acrylic. It's a number 4 medium weight, which is aran worsted weight yarn, and comes in some super lovely colours. I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook for this project. You will need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for when it comes to sewing in your ends and attaching the handle. A stitch marker may also come in handy, and also a tape measure. So again, I'll leave all of the links in the description box below. Make sure that you go and check that out. Grab everything that you need and let's get started. So we're going to begin with the base of the bottle holder, and we're going to be using our main colour. So for me today, this is going to be this chiffon colour. And in this bottle holder, I actually use the darker colour as the main colour. So it's going to give a little bit of a different effect. And if I just bring over these can cozies that I have, you can see the difference here. This is where the white is the main colour, and then this is where the white is the contrast colour. So you can choose how you want yours to turn out, but it's quite nice to have fun playing around with this pattern. So as I say, I'm going to use the chiffon, the white, as my main colour for this smaller bottle holder. So you want to go ahead and lay your yarn over your finger, and we're going to create a magic ring. So laying your yarn over your hand like so with the tail end over, and you're going to wrap the working end around your finger to create an X. You want to go ahead and insert your hook under that first loop and then pull the second loop through like so, and then you're just going to take the working end and pull that through, and there we have our magic ring. So to begin, we're going to work into this magic ring, and we're going to do 6 double crochets, which is a US single crochet. So we're going to go into the magic circle, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 2 loops on the hook, and then yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. That's 1. And again, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. That's 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So you're going to go ahead and pull that magic ring closed, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. So if you want to count backwards, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. That takes you to your first stitch, and you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch. And that is round 1 done. So for the base, we're going to do the same for both of the sizes. However, the larger size just has an extra round, which I will give instruction for. So this is for all sizes until I say otherwise. So for round 2, we're going to chain 1, and we're going to increase from 6 stitches to 12 stitches. So we're going to work 2 double crochets, US single crochets, into that first stitch. So that's 1 and 2, and you can use your stitch marker to mark that first stitch if you wish. And then we'll go into the next stitch. That's 3 and 4, into the next, 5 and 6, into the next, 7 and 8, and into the next, 9 and 10, and then we have 2 more, 11 and 12. So just remember that this stitch here, it looks like we're missing a stitch, but this is actually the slip stitch from the previous row, and then the stitch, the smaller stitch next to it is the chain 1 from the beginning of the round. So we're just going to go into this very first stitch just here and join with a slip stitch, and then we can move on to round 3. We're going to chain 1, does not count as a stitch, and then we're going to increase by a further 6 stitches. So we're going to do a double crochet, US single crochet into that first stitch, and then 2 stitches into the next stitch, 1 and 2. And that's the pattern repeat. We're going to work all the way round. So 1 into the next stitch, 2 into the next, 1 and 2, 1 into the next, and 2 into the next, 1 and 2. You're going to repeat that all the way round and you'll end up with 18 stitches. So pause the video, work that all the way round and meet me back once you're ready. So once you've worked your way round, you can join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. And then we're ready for round 4. So for round 4, we're going to chain 1, does not count as a stitch, and we're going to increase to 24 stitches. The way that we do this is we're going to do 1 stitch into the next 2 stitches. So we have 1 into the next stitch, 2. Remember, we're working double crochet, US single crochet, and then 2 stitches into the next stitch, 1 and 2. So I'll just repeat that again. 1 into the next stitch, 1 into the next stitch, and then 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2. So you'll repeat that all the way round until you have 24 stitches, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch, and then you're ready for the next round. So if you're doing the smaller one, we'll move on to the setup round. If you are doing the larger bottle size, you are going to add 1 more round to your work. So I'll just demonstrate that now, but remember, if you're doing the smaller size, do not do this round. You're going to chain 1, and then we're going to increase by 6 stitches again, so we're going to end up with 36 stitches. We're going to do 1 stitch into the next 4 stitches, and then 2 into the next. So it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2. So you would work that all the way round and then join with a slip stitch to your very first stitch. I'm going to go ahead and remove this so that I can go back to just my 5 rounds, and I'll meet you back in a moment. So we're now going to move on to the main body setup, and to make things easier, we're just going to start off with round 1 again. So round 1 for the main setup. So we're going to chain 1 to begin with. Again, this does not count as a stitch. And we're going to be working around the post of the stitch. So normally we work into the top of the stitch like this, but we're going to be working around this post. So we're actually going to be doing a back post double crochet, which is a back post single crochet. So this means we need to take our hook round to the back of the work, and then we're going to go from the back to the front of the work like so. Then we want to work around this post, so we want to go from the front to the back, and we can see that just pushes the post out to the back here. We'll yarn over and pull through. We'll have 2 loops on the hook, and then yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. You may want to pop a stitch marker into that very first stitch just to keep track of where you are. But we're going to do this all the way round. So I'll show you again. We're going to take our hook to the back of the work, and then we go from the back to the front, and then from the front to the back to push that next post forwards. At this point, this stitch can get quite loose here, so just pull down on your tension just to pull that in a little bit, just so it's not too loose. Yarn over and pull through. You'll have 2 loops on the hook, and yarn over, pull through both loops on the hook. That is our second stitch. So I'll just show you that once more. Go round to the back and then back to the front, And then I'm just going to demonstrate this again. This stitch can be quite loose, so I'm going to pull on my tension just to bring that back down a little bit, yarn over and pull through, and yarn over and pull through. So if you're finding that your stitches are really big, then that's where you need to pull on your tension, where I showed you. So you're going to work this all the way around, and you're going to have the same amount of stitches that you did before. So it's 30 for the smaller and then 36 for the larger. Work that all the way around into your last stitch and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I've worked my way around. I'm going to take out my stitch marker and join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch. Please double check your stitch count at this point to make sure that you either have your 30 or 36 stitches, because that will be very important when we move on. So now what we're going to do is chain one and then work 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each stitch all the way around. Make sure you mark your first stitch so you know where you are. So super simple round, 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each stitch all the way around. Again, your stitch count will not change. So pause the video, work your way around, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch to that very first stitch. And now we're going to move on to the main bag section. So that was the setup, and now we're doing the main bag section. We're going to chain one and then work a double crochet, US single crochet into that very first stitch, mark with a stitch marker. And then we're going to chain two, skip 2 stitches, and then start our pattern repeat. So we're going to work a double crochet, US single crochet into that next stitch, chain 2, skip 2, and then do that again. Double crochet, US single crochet, chain 2, and skip 2. Double crochet, chain 2, skip 2. You're going to do that all the way round until you finish with your chain 2 and skip 2, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've now worked my way around, I've chained 2, I've skipped 2. Please remember that this stitch here is the slip stitch from the previous round, and then this smaller stitch here is your chain 1 from the beginning of the round. So we ignore those, and we're going to join with a slip stitch into that very first stitch. So at this point, what we're going to do is you can either pull up a loop or you can pop a stitch marker into this working loop. It's totally up to you. I personally prefer to just drop mine down. And what is important to remember is the main colour is always going to drop towards the front. So the main colour is always towards the front. Make that loop a little bit longer if that makes you feel a little bit more secure. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our contrast colour, and you want to make a slip knot, and we're going to join into this chain 2 after this join. So that's where we've joined, and then this is the first chain 2 space. So we're going to join with a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That counts as our first treble crochet, which is a US double crochet. And then we're going to work 2 treble crochets, US double crochets, into this same chain 2 space. So it's yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, you'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, you'll have 2 loops on the hook, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1, and then again 2. We're going to skip the double crochet and then work another 3 treble crochets into this next chain 2 space. 1, 2, and 3. So these 3 treble crochets, which are US double crochets, all together create our granny cluster. So you're going to repeat that all the way round. You're going to work 3 trebles, US double crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way round to your last chain 2 space, and then make sure that you are not catching any of these tail ends here. and keeping them towards the front. So finish in your last chain 2 space here, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've just worked my way around, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch to this very first stitch. Now, if for some reason you accidentally kept this tail end, the working tail end, towards the back, what would happen is it would be in the wrong position for you to use in the next round. So that's why we need to make sure that it is towards the front of the work. And then we're going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch. It's not the end of the world if you accidentally join with a slip stitch and it's towards the back. You just undo the slip stitch and bring it forward and redo the slip stitch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a loop with the contrast colour. Pop your stitch marker in there if you wish, but it's going to drop to the back. So your contrast colour is always going to drop to the back. And then we're going to pick up the main colour. And you can see how this stitch here has just gone a little bit strange. So it does fix itself once we pull on this tail end and then just pull that back. It just creates the stitch again. So for round 5, we're going to start off with a chain 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4. This counts as a treble crochet, US double crochet and a chain 1, and then we're also going to do a treble crochet, US double crochet into this same stitch. So it's yarn over into the stitch. At this point you do want to ignore the last round that we did, so we want to push that backwards, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 and yarn over, pull through 2. So we've just created our first V-stitch, obviously modified V-stitch with it being the beginning of the round, but now we'll do a full V-stitch. So what we want to do is we want to find the double crochet, which is US single crochet, from 2 rows below, so here in the main colour, and then we're going to yarn over, go into that stitch, again ignoring the last round, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2 and yarn over, pull through 2, chain 1 and then work another treble crochet, US double crochet into that same space. So I'm going to refer to that as a V-stitch from now on. So if you remember, it's a treble crochet, chain 1, treble crochet in UK terms, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in US terms. So I'll refer to it as a V-stitch just to make things easier, just in the same way that I'll refer to these as granny clusters. So we're now going to find that next available stitch just here and work a V-stitch in there, ignoring that last round that we made, 1 and 2, oops, 1, chain 1 and 2, and then find the next stitch and V-stitch into there, 1, chain 1 and 2. So we have 2 layers at the same time now. We've got 2 layers here and they're going to be joined in the next round, but for now just work your way until you do your last V-stitch in this last stitch here, and then meet me back once you're ready. So we've just worked our way around and we're going to join to this very first V-stitch. Now this was a chain 4, so we actually want to find the 3rd chain from the bottom, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch into that 3rd chain. So we're going to lift that up and drop it to the front. Remember, you can use your stitch marker if you wish, and then we're going to pick up the contrast colour, so just pull that into place. So I'm going to push all of these tails to the side, because now what we're going to be working into is this V-stitch here and also the space between the granny clusters just here. So we're going to be grouping these 2 layers together. So to begin with, we're going to start with a stacked double crochet, which is a stacked single crochet in US terms. So we're going to go into that V-stitch, which is just where the join is, or just after this join here, and then into the space between the granny clusters. So yarn over, pull through, you'll have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, that's 1 stitch, and then we're going to go into this long leg just here. So into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and that's going to count as a treble crochet, which is a US double crochet. And then we're going to finish off our granny cluster. So we're going to do 2 more trebles, US doubles, into this space, 1 and 2. We're going to do our next granny cluster into the next V stitch. So we have our V stitch here. It's not the upside down V, it's the right way up V, and then that is laying right on top of the space between the granny clusters. So we'll do another granny cluster, 1, 2 and 3, and then in the next space again another granny cluster. So we're working through both thicknesses in this round in order to bring those layers together. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way all the way round until you get to that last V stitch, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've worked my way round, and I'm going to pull all of my main colour forwards and then join with a slip stitch into the top of that stacked double crochet from the beginning of the round, and then pull up a loop and drop it behind. Now again, this stitch goes a little bit wonky, so when we put our hook in and then pull it tight, it's just going to pull that V stitch back together nicely. It might just take a little bit of a wiggle and then it goes back to how it should be. So now we're going to move on to round 7. So we're going to chain 4 to begin with, 1, 2, 3 and 4. That's going to count as a treble crochet and a chain 1. I will just mention as well, if you wanted to, you could actually do a stacked double crochet instead here. So you would go under the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then work another double crochet on top of there to create your stitch, and then you would chain 1 and then work another treble crochet, US double crochet into that stitch to create your V. So it's up to you. You can either chain 4 and then work a treble crochet, or do a stacked double crochet. I feel like the chain 1 isn't really that visible once it's within the entire work. So, you know, it's totally up to you if you wanted to switch that out. So what we're going to do now is then just do our V stitches into the space between the V stitches from 2 rows previous. So we're going to go in there and we're going to ignore that last round that we've just done. So we'll work our V stitch, treble, chain 1 and treble. And then find the next V stitch. So working under the stitch and not into the stitch. So that is important to remember as we're going round. So working our V stitch, 1, chain 1 and 1. So you'll go ahead and work that all the way round until you've finished in your last space between V's, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now that you've worked your way round, you're going to go ahead and join with a slip stitch to that first stitch. Now if you've done a chain 3, then you would do it into your 3rd chain. If you've done a stacked double crochet, you're going to do it into the top of that stacked stitch. So we'll go ahead, join with a slip stitch, pull out the loop, and then we're ready to move on to round 8. Now from round 8 onwards, we are going to repeat rounds 6 and 7. So it would be that we pick up this contrast colour and then start working our granny cluster in that first space into the V stitch and between the 2 granny clusters from 2 rows previous. So you can rewind the video if you need to in order to get those instructions to work up. So for this size, you're going to repeat round 6 and 7 for rounds 8 to 27. So you're doing that a further 10 times. And then for the larger size, you're going to repeat rounds 6 and 7 for rounds 8 to 33. So that's 13 more times. So go ahead, pause the video, work those rounds, rewind the video if you need to, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've now finished all of my rounds. I'm just going to drop this main colour for now because we can actually fasten off this contrast colour. We're done with the contrast colour. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through and then fasten off. And then we're going to move on to the next round. So for me, this is round 28. For the large, it will be round 34. We're going to be working through both thicknesses so that we can secure these both down together. And we're going to start in this very first stitch where the join is. We're going to be working in the space between the two V stitches. And then we're also going to be working into the center treble US double crochet of that granny stitch. So the center stitch of the granny cluster. We're then going to find the V-stitch and we're going to work 2 double crochets, US single crochets into this stitch. I'm just going to refer to them as stitches just to make it easier because we're going to be using double crochets, US single crochets throughout these final rounds. So we're going to work 2 stitches into this V-stitch and then we're also going to go into the space between the granny clusters. So 1 and 2. I'm going to work this tail end in a little bit as we're working round. We're going to then find the space between the V stitches and then also the central stitch of that granny cluster. We're going to work 1 into there and then find the V stitch and the space between the clusters and work 2 into there. So this is what we're going to work all the way round. So the space between the V and the central stitch of the granny cluster, and then 2 in the V-stitch and the space between the granny clusters. So go ahead, pause the video, work that all the way round. You'll finish with 2 stitches in this V-stitch just here, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way around, you're going to join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. Now we only have 3 rounds left for both sizes, and these 3 rounds are going to be exactly the same. We're going to lift up our hook slightly so that we can do a standing double crochet, US single crochet, and then we're going to go straight into that very first stitch. So insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our very first stitch. And then you're just going to work 1 stitch into each stitch all the way around. So you are going to have 30 stitches for the small size and then 36 for the large size. So make sure that you are counting the amount of stitches that you have in each round. When you get to the end, join with a slip stitch to your first stitch and then do that until you have 3 rounds of these double crochets. So this is the first, and then you want to do 2 more. So go ahead, pause the video, work those 3 rounds and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way around, this is the end of the main body and we're going to make a start on either the handle or the strap. So you can choose whether you want to have the small handle or the long strap. It's going to be the same for both in terms of stitch count, but obviously a different amount of rows, and it will be slightly different in how we attach it. So for this part you just need to decide whether you're doing the handle or the strap. So we are going to chain 1, and then for this first row we're going to double crochet, US single crochet into that first stitch and into the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. We have just made 6 stitches in that row, so we're just going to go into that very first stitch and then work a double crochet, US single crochet into each of those 6 stitches. 3, 4, 5 and 6. And that row 2 is what we're going to repeat all the way up. We're going to chain 1, turn our work and work 1 double crochet, US single crochet into each of those 6 stitches. So for the shorter handle you're going to do 40 rows, And for the strap, you're going to do 130 rows. Obviously, you can adapt this to however you want. You can measure out the strap or the handle. You can pop your water bottle in if there's a specific one you're going to use and just check that the handle is the right size for you. But in the pattern, I've done it with 40 rows for the handle and 130 for the strap. So go ahead, pause the video, work all of those rows and then meet me back once you're ready. So once you've finished your strap or your handle, you're going to go ahead and fasten off, leaving a long tail end for sewing. And you want to thread up your darning needle. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that this is not twisted, because we are going to attach it to the opposite side. So if you are doing the small version, we're going to have 9 stitches in between the one side and the other of the handle. If you're doing the largest size, you're going to have 12 stitches. So we have our first stitch just here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So we're going to go into this 10th stitch. And then if you want to double check that you're in the right place, you can count 6 stitches from there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you should have 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So as I say, if you're doing the larger one, you will have 12 stitches in between the handles. So I'm just going to make sure that it's not twisted. And I've gone in this stitch. And then I'm going to come back through the handle like so, and then I'm going to go in the next stitch and back through the next stitch of the handle, and then find the next stitch, and then the next stitch of the handle. And then once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to go through one and the other. So make sure that you are not pulling too tightly to distort the stitches, but you want this to be nice and sturdy, because it's going to be holding the weight of the bottle. So pull that, and then into the last one. And then just to neaten it off, because you do sometimes get this section here, I'm going to go through there and back through that same stitch again, just to make it nice and neat and tidy. I'm going to bring this through to the inside of the work and fasten off. And then sew in my ends using the rule of 3. So one way, back the other, and then back the other way. Go ahead and fasten off. And then you also want to check inside to make sure that all of your other tail ends are sewn in. So you can now pop in your water bottle, and there you have your bottle holder. So I really hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. I can't wait to see your pictures, to see what you've made and which colours you've chosen. So don't forget to tag me on social media. I love to see them. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell button so that you are notified of any new videos. A matching tote bag or crossbody bag, then you might also like this video too.